We're going to call this meeting to order. It's March 13th, 2024, 6 p.m. at the Oxford Fire Station. We, as the planning board, we thought it would be good to call a public hearing on this. That became this project that came before us, just because of the nature of it and the volume, the size, and what was going on. It was sent to the appeals because we were originally had to deny it, but then it went to the appeals, and then the appeals passed it, and it came back to us. So we wanted to let the public know what was going on. So, so we are going to. This is our only recording device. So if at the end when we have public, people asking questions, we'll have to have you come up here so it can actually be recorded. So I'll introduce Steve. He is going to.
I will.
Oh, and Suzanne. You're both going to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, three of us really, but yeah.
Okay, sorry. What's your name?
Andy Jackson.
Andy. Okay. Andy, Steve.
Steve Bushy, Grohl Palmer. I'm the consultant civil engineer and traffic engineer. Grohl Palmer's based in South Florida.
Yeah, so I'm Suzanne DeKevet, coaching. Work for the Caleb Group, representing the owner.
Andy Jackson, consultant, specializing in housing.
All right, so just going to turn it over to you guys because you have all the explanation and the.
So we thought we'd take the time to present the project to the community. I have, I forget how many I have left. I have 15 presentations, so if you want one, please make sure if you're in a group, you just share them on the group because I didn't print quickly. Alright, I'll just get going. So this is future state, what we're looking to have if everything goes well. So that's the mill in the future, maybe 5 years down the road. Okay, so I'll go to the next slide. So the next slide is essentially the agenda for the presentation. I'm going to go over just one page that shows the project team. It's fairly extensive. We've been doing a fair amount of work. Then I'll give you some background on my organization, what we do for a living, what we plan on doing in Oxford. Then we'll go over the development plan for the site. It's multi-phase. It's not just one thing. And then Steve will go over, here, we'll go over the site and the architectural plan, so you'll see what the site plan is going to look like, and then you'll see the pretty drawings and elevations. No peeking ahead. Anyways, and then there was, I think folks are interested in hearing about parking and traffic, so we'll address that. And then the last item we can cover or not, it's about how difficult of a site it is to develop. As you might know, a lot of folks have looked at it over the years. So we'll explain some background on that. Why we think we can do it. All right, so this is the project team. It's fairly extensive. Of course, we're at the center, right? Our architect and Vivian, they have a tremendous amount of experience working on mills. Steve represents Grohl Palmer. Cudero Associates, there are environmental folks. Essex Preservation, they're the ones who did the study for the historic mill and determined that if we do some demo, there's a good chance that the mill could actually go on the National Registry of Historic Buildings, and that will be a major key to accessing some of the funding, which is historic tax credits at the federal and state level. And then you have Andy from Dovetail Consulting, who's right here, and then our surveyor, Davis Land Surveyor. And then we have other people helping who are not there. We've been getting estimates from GCs and whatnot. All right, so the Caleb Group. So we are a 501c3, so that means nonprofit, right? We've been around for a little more than 30 years. We're based out of Maine, Massachusetts, which is north of Boston, if anyone's familiar with that. And we develop, own, acquire, and manage affordable housing developments. They're all rentals. We don't do housing for sale. And when we purchase and acquire properties, we manage all of them and we keep them. We never ever sell. So that's important to remember. We keep our assets. We don't sell them. Hello. Alright. So next slide. So this is our portfolio. We have about 31 communities, that's what we call them. We're across 4 states in New England. We have about 1,900 units with a fairly large presence in Maine. And that equates what I like to call a village, like 4,200 residents. We have more people coming. And we have a couple of projects under construction, one in Compton, New Hampshire, one in Madison, Connecticut, and then hopefully a few others who are in the pipeline, or that are in the pipeline. So we've been doing this for a while, and we're spread out. So, and you know Maine pretty well. I don't, but my organization does. All right, so did I go to? Yeah. Okay. So at each property or community, we provide certain services. So we provide property management, resident services, and then maintenance. I don't know if I need to go over in detail what each one does. Do you have questions on that, or you're clear on which? So property management, essentially, you make sure the property is functioning, you're handling the maintenance requests, you make sure the property is in good order and it's cash flowing so we can pay our debt. The maintenance works obviously very closely with the property management to make sure that the property is clean and everything's working well. And then the one piece that we pride ourselves in is resident services. Not all the properties in affordable housing have that, but we pride ourselves in providing that. So it's a go-to person for the residents that will facilitate coordination with outside services, whatever it may be. And then some examples of that is the resident services coordinator in an older adult community, like the one that we're planning here, would work with the residents to offer customizable programs. These are just examples of what's been done in the past. It's not just, you know, one what's the expression? Sorry, I'm tired. One model fits all. It's really, what do you want to do at the property? What would be fun? What do you want to bring here? What are you interested in doing? So a big one is gardening. So here we're probably going to plan on having raised beds and stuff like that. And yeah, so those are kind of things that we work on. If there are questions, just, yeah, go ahead.
On your previous screen under maintenance, the last line,
Yeah.
are the people who live here going to have to go to the transfer station, or are you going to take care of trash removal for them in the building?
Oh, we take care of that. So we'll show you the site plan. There's a spot where you need to bring your trash, and then I don't know how trash works here, but I guess, you hire a service and then they come in, empty the dumpster.
Have a question?
Yeah.
As far as maintenance, do you have your own employees that travel
Yeah.
around your properties,
Yeah.
or do you hire locally?
Yeah, so let me, so we plan on having, for the whole site, we plan on having one FTE, so one full-time person for each role. And they will just be dedicated to the Robinson Mill site. So they'll be handling both housing components. So when you'll see the plan, on the site plan, you'll see there are 2 housing components that we're planning for. The first one is 30 units. The other one is going to be the actual mill with the mill building and the boiler house. You guys are probably familiar with that because you know the site pretty by heart, I bet. So we're planning on having 1 FTE for each one of these services. All the personnel is in-house. They're all Caleb Group employees.
Was there any consideration to hire Oxford residents for these positions?
Yeah, I mean, that would just make our life far easier. If there are people who are interested in joining one of these, or being part of one of these roles, yeah, of course. No. So we're not going to look into hiring anyone until we've received the financial sources and construction's on the way. And then when we're near construction, we'll probably look to hire people to fulfill those positions. But yeah, if you're interested, yeah, of course.
I'm retired, but I'm just curious. I'm looking more for the time.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
On the previous screen, you had a thing older with an asterisk, you had 7.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That means, so I don't know the whole makeup of our properties, but usually it's 62 plus.
Okay, what are you looking at here?
I'll go over it, but 62 plus.
Is there gonna be other families in there other than 62 plus?
No, just older adults. I'll go over it. We have a slide for the specifics. Yep, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you have federal funding, or federal money is going to be utilized?
Yeah, we're seeking everything.
You are?
We can go in the weeds on that, but
Then what assurance do you have, or can you give us, that, I'm going to say illegal aliens are moved in to the Oxford area? With federal funding, they control. Yep.
Right.
Good question. And that's what's happening in a lot of areas throughout the United States.
So there
You
are.
can't guarantee it.
Yeah, there's no assurance, you cannot give us any assurance.
Yes. So, the housing, the programs we're pursuing, are called the Affordable Housing Tax Credit, and we have to offer it to anybody.
Yeah, that's the question.
Otherwise, we would violate federal fair housing laws. There are laws that prevent discrimination in housing.
Keep
Based on
that in
race,
mind, folks.
based on race, based on religion, based on ethnicity, based on, and those apply to every landlord, not just us, but.
Even if they're here illegally?
Yeah.
Keep that in mind,
Keep
folks.
it in mind.
So,
You have a place in Sanford called the Old Wool Mill, and it has 40 units, and it says serving adult 18, seniors, and low income, and people with disabilities. How are you gonna turn around and guarantee us that wouldn't happen here?
so let me speak to the first point about illegal aliens. The rents we're gonna charge are $853 a month. The people that live here have to be able to pay the rent. If someone is here illegally, my understanding is they're not gonna be eligible to have a work visa. So
That's what the federal government steps in and pays the rent.
that, the program you're describing is, I believe, called a Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher. That's not the type of project we're developing here. This is what's called a,
leave it to the side.
yeah.
Right, we'll skip, I mean, there's okay, this is the slide. So, on the side, we're proposing a total of 77 units, 62 plus. In terms of affordability, we're making it up to 60% of NMI. That means that if it's one person living in the unit, it's gonna be to an income up to $31,860. That's as of 2024. So by the time this is finished, maybe 2-3 years down the road, that will go up for sure. For 2 people, it's $36,420. The affordability term is 45 years, so it's going to stay affordable for 45 years. As I mentioned earlier in our profile, we hold on to our properties, we don't sell them. So when we get to that, we'll probably re-up, and it's going to just stay affordable forever. In other states, they require that it be affordable in perpetuity. So Then the rent, as Andy mentioned, as of this year is $853. Obviously, it's gonna go up by the time we're finished. And then the tenant selection process, which we're kind of touching base on right now. If people are interested in potentially living there, they're welcome to start joining a waiting list. I can hand out my business card and folks can get on the waiting list. And that's how folks can access housing in this development.
What about, is that strictly for Oxford residents, or somebody from quite a ways away could move in if they make the requirement?
So we're not allowed to limit it geographically. What we are allowed to do, and what a lot of landlords do, is what's called affirmative local marketing. So we can go to meetings like this, we can announce what's going on, we can put up a flyer at the grocery store, we could go, and so make it much more likely that the people who are around would be the first ones to hear about it. And the apartments will be basically offered first come, first serve. So the first people that get in their names on the waiting list would be the first ones who would go through the intake process. I'm not aware of another affordable housing development in Oxford County in recent years, so I don't have any data to show on that. But
Next slide.
yeah.
Yeah, so this next slide, that's official data. It actually shows the number of people who would be eligible to apply if they decided to apply and live in this community across Oxford County. We didn't have at the Oxford specific level, but if you look at your presentation, you'll see that folks in this category and that category, so it's 45 to 64 and 65 plus, meaning those two colors, are eligible. And so I translated that into that table here. So as we were looking on the previous slide, the income levels for like one person would be $31,860. So if it was just one person, you'd have at least 500 people plus a bit of that. If it was two, and assuming one didn't have an income, it would be this category, so 557 plus a chunk of 534. This doesn't account for all of these others as well who might be eligible, because one person might make 10, another one might make 20. Anyway, so you get the point. So there's actually a fairly large pool of people who could actually apply and live in this community. Yes.
So even though the word HUD was up there, it's not going to be income-based like HUD housing that's 33% of your income. It is strictly $853 minimum.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there are lots of different affordable housing programs. One of them is called the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher, and in that you would pay 33% of your income, and if your income is zero, you pay zero. Those types of projects don't tend to have a great reputation. This is a totally different type of funding program, where the rent is $853, and all the households who go through the intake process have to show income certifications. There's an asset test. So if you have a secret bank account, that would get sniffed out. And you have to basically show the ability to pay $853 a month. So at the age ranges we're talking about, we've got probably a lot of retirees, maybe a lot of people on SSI, some working people, not super high income, but you have to have some income.
$36,000 if you're retired is a pretty good Social Security check annually.
So the point is you have to have some income
Yeah.
to live here. So I don't know if that answers the question.
I have a question. Basically, this is set for one person.
No, two people can live in the units, but let me go back
And
to
it
the
would
slide
cost the same?
that we skipped. Yeah, so this is our typical makeup in our other properties of who lives there. As Andy just referred to, retirees, relying on Social Security. Folks like to use the example of widowers. So this is anecdotal. It's not based on a survey, right? But then, based on the data that we have, the one-bedroom occupancies that we have for communities that are 62 plus, it tends to be a 1-to-1 ratio. It's not. You rarely see 2-to-1, and it's just 6%. So it's usually just 1-to-1. Does that answer your question? So it could be two people.
But I mean, if there's two people, it will go up some.
So it's the slide I showed
Why?
you. It's,
Because
it's
there's
this,
more
it's here.
usage to
Yeah,
it.
there'd be the rent would be the same, but the income, combined income would be slightly higher. Yes.
How many bedrooms are these apartments going to have?
So it's, I'll get in the weeds of that. So we're proposing 2 phases, 130, 147, and they're all one bedrooms.
What's the average rent in Oxford right now for market rate, not, lower income?
We haven't done a market study, but let me see if I can.
Yeah.
Dwelling
We'll
unit
look it up.
is the difference, 77
I
dwelling
mean, I
units.
was, probably the people in this room
Yeah,
know
yeah.
it. Maybe about
130 bedrooms.
Right.
All right. Should I move on, or are there more questions? All right, I see that shaking, yes, okay. All right, so this is, let's get into the specifics of the project. So, obviously, the aim is to do historic adaptive reuse of the middle buildings, so meaning the 2 buildings that you see there, and I think a few of you probably worked there over the years. And then the boiler house where's the boiler house? The boiler house will be back there, right? And then on the footprint of one of the warehouses, we're looking to build another 30 units. So technically, it's adaptive reuse. One of them is historic, the other one is new construction, because we're going to be leveraging some of the footprint of the warehouse. We're aiming to have the buildings be all electric, so heat pumps, meaning cooling, heating, and we really want to put solar. So we're working on that right now, working on our numbers. In terms of amenities, each I hate to call it facilities, but each housing phase is going to have a laundry room, a community room, common area Wi-Fi, and a large outdoor open area, which you'll see on the site plan. Also, one thing that we aim to do is to restore pedestrian footbridge access, not car, solely pedestrian. So essentially, would be reconnecting King Street to the village. Here you go, thank you.
So they can get to the post office.
Exactly. Yes.
On that note,
Yeah.
when this was first put into the books in '76, where they were allowed to close that road, they were given a deed to close the road off, but it was supposed to be, as from when I was there going to these things, if it was ever closed, the mill ever closed down, that was to be reverted back to a road, not a footpath, a roadway.
Are you talking about the bridge or the?
Yeah.
From the bridge to
King Street?
To King Street. That was supposed to have been reverted back to a road.
That actually isn't in the deed. It actually doesn't specify that.
It doesn't specify, but
Right.
there was supposed to have been a, like a hearing on the 5th. I couldn't find a record of that hearing anywhere.
That's probably why it never ended up being recorded in the deed, because the town didn't have a chance to vote on that, which that's probably why it's not in the deed.
But that was the intent of the thing, where that road was supposed to be put back in.
But it couldn't anyway at this point with those houses there.
No.
It's an impossible thing to do even if.
They're tearing those houses, that section, no, the road was supposed to go right from the bridge right straight across, where the road used to be.
Okay.
I remember that too.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not, that was just one of the stipulations when, of us giving them permission to close that road off. If that was ever to be closed down, that road was supposed to be put back in.
Yeah, we're not aware of it. In our discussions with the town, we were gathering feedback just a second. We had a discussion with the fire department asking, would you have any access to the footbridge to bring in a fire truck, for emergencies? The answer was no. And you could talk to this, it's better than me. The bridge might not be in good enough condition to sustain the weight of the fire truck. So if you can't do that, you can't possibly reopen the bridge unless you have pour money into fixing it. But
Okay.
that's your concern.
Yeah, at this stage, what's in deed, this land is their land. If they decide they want to do that, it would potentially open up issues with DOT to be able to bring that bridge up to the standard so vehicles could come through. So the landowner now, the Caleb Foundation, would have to decide if they wanted to do that. There's nothing in deed that we found that would require it because it's closed, or else it probably would have done if they originally
So-
when they closed.
Why, so where would there be a record of that meeting?
If it wasn't in the town meeting minutes and it was just a select board meeting,
No, it was supposed to be an open town meeting.
then we would have record of that. But if you weren't able to locate it, it probably
That's why
never.
I'm wondering, why can't I, because some things have always done through the town that were probably shouldn't have been done the way they were. And where, is there something, someplace that might be put into another folder? Because there's more than just me that remembers this.
You looked in the town, all the town books, right?
I looked from the town meeting ones and the general meeting.
The select board?
Select.
So,
Yeah, and
there you
it
go.
said right in the select board meetings that they were gonna have like a town hearing on the 5th, but there's no record of that town, and then like the next day or a couple days later, they had a vote and they just passed it. But there's no record of this meeting. And I'm wondering why.
I think we can shut this down pretty quickly. That would have probably been an agreement between the town and the Robinson Mill. But since the mill did not just close, it went out of business. It was, and then the property was turned over. I would assume there's no record either. The meeting didn't come, although probably there's a handful of people in here that would remember if the meeting happened. This lady in front of me. But if there was never any recording of it, or if it was an agreement between Robinson and the town, that does not apply to these folks.
No, this
because-
was a meeting with the town people
Right.
that they were supposed to have.
So it would have been upon the town, when the mill went out of business, to have taken on the expense of making that happen, and obviously the town didn't do that. So it's kind of a blunder between the mill and the town, I would say at that point. It wouldn't fall into this project because the mill's already changed hands several times since it's closed. That's just my 2 cents. Shame on the
And-
town. It's a shame
Yeah.
on the town, yeah.
Any other questions on the topic or the slide?
Not that topic.
That's it? What else?
The laundry, is there gonna be a laundry on each floor, given
So,
the age of
I'll go over, so it's gonna be one laundry room per building. The first phase is just 1 floor. Obviously, the second phase, as you can see, 3 and 4 floors. The laundry will be on the bottom floor. There's an elevator.
Is there gonna be more than one elevator, I hope?
I'm sorry?
I said I hope there's gonna be more than one elevator.
We're required to just put one.
What if one breaks down and it's mostly elevator?
It's a good question. If that comes to pass, and folks can't use the stairs, typically we relocate them until the elevator is fixed. That's what we've done in other properties. Massachusetts requires to, but it's a fairly expensive exercise. It's like another $200K for the project.
Well, I'm just.
Yeah, no, it's a good
saying,
question.
Safety wise.
Yes.
I would.
Go ahead.
I had a question. If it's an all-electric building, is there gonna be any backup for any kind of oil for heat source?
We'll have
Winter?
a backup generator. It's usually propane, isn't it? Yeah. Typically is a backup generator for the common areas.
Can you repeat your question? I couldn't hear.
No, I was just asking if it was an all-electric building where we've had ice storms here in the past that lasted almost 2 weeks. Do they have a backup plan for heat, water, something like that?
Yeah, so we, as Ed just said, we'll have a backup generator with propane. We'll have to pay more attention to that if the ice storms really last that long.
But didn't you say it would be back up for just common areas?
Common areas, so that
Right.
includes the community room. We'll pay more attention to that.
hopefully the solar array will fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the solar array, we're actually going through that exercise right now, talking to solar providers. We want to make sure that the solar array is large enough to cater for heating, cooling, electricity in the unit. I didn't list it here, but we're still modeling the numbers, and we're trying to pay for all of the utilities for the tenants, so we don't have to worry about that. But the core of the energy will be provided by the sun through the solar panels. So that's heat, cooling, cooking, lights.
What are the heights of the ceilings on each floor? Because I have a heat pump and I pay a lot of money for my cathedral ceilings. It all goes up there.
So the buildings are different.
Yeah.
But one thing we should point out is that we have to meet all the modern energy codes, and our primary funder, Maine State Housing Authority, has energy standards that are even beyond the building code, beyond MUBEC. And these buildings have to meet a very tight air tightness standard. They have to have insulation everywhere that's actually beyond the building code. And they typically take very little energy to heat and cool. So I don't know what kind of house you live in, obviously, but I wouldn't compare it to an older house, definitely.
Well, I have a brand new house, but I'm just thinking like when they redo
Yeah.
schools, schoolrooms had really high ceilings,
Yeah.
and they put heat pumps in there, and they're seeing right up
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So,
Yeah.
So the specific question is the electric bill included in the $850 rent, yes or no?
So we're still working on that. We have two options. One is the landlord pays for all the utilities, tenants pay $853, period. And so that rent would include heat, hot water, trash pickup, and everything. The other option is, and we're literally just looking at solar numbers today, trying to figure out whether this makes sense or not, is that if we ask the tenants to pay the electric bill, we give them an allowance, a monthly allowance. I don't remember the exact number, but it's something on the order of $70, $80 per month, times 12 months. And that is intended to cover their electric bill. I think as of today, we're leaning towards the landlord paying for it, assuming that the solar numbers shake out properly. But we wouldn't ask the tenants to pay, we're not allowed to ask the tenants to pay for a utility without giving that allowance.
Yeah.
So, since the building is required to be tightened up so much, are you gonna have fresh air exchange?
Yes,
Yeah.
you already,
Yeah.
I got a question. Sanford, there's 40 units, okay? Up in Bangor, that's 30 units. There's more population up in Bangor and Sanford. Why are we asking for 77 units here? Our community's small.
It's, if that goes to the last slide, they've got a difficult to develop site.
So that tells me,
So in order
I
to
don't
make-
know how many people utilize it from town, but if we have 77 units or more, people from away are gonna come here.
No, so the reason we were going with 77, it's the minimum number we need to make the numbers work. There's a lot that goes into it, and if you don't have that minimum, it just doesn't work. I mean, Andy can provide.
I
data.
understand.
But the other
We
side of it, in
We
terms
had
of
50 units here, that was, but from what I understand, it was 50 units. Now all of a sudden it comes 70, then it went 80.
So you might remember that the previous development that proposed 50 units wasn't able to make it work. And I understand that other developers have looked at it as well.
Can we go to the last slide?
Can you go to the slide that had the Oxford County household numbers? So if you just look at towards the bottom right of this chart, the income levels we're talking about, it depends on how many people are in the household, but 1 or 2 people in the household, you're in these income levels. And let's just look at this column, even though we would also get a little bit of this column. There's over 1,000 households in Oxford County alone.
That's Oxford County, not Oxford.
This is the data we have. We have Oxford County. That are at the right age levels and the right income levels to be a potential sort of audience for this type of project. So in other words, with 77 units divided by 1,000 households, we only have to get about 7% of the households in Oxford County interested in this project, and we're full. The other thing to keep in mind is we're talking about a multi-phase project. It's going to be probably a year and a half, 2 years from now before, even if we're lucky, before we could open our doors for the first phase, another year or two after that. So there's going to be a,
We'll break ground maybe in a year and a half.
well, until
Yeah.
people are, until we're allowed to do the renting.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quite a long runway here for this project to try to take off. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to get the word out and for people to get on the wait list. And, I don't know if that responds to your concern, but that's the way we see it.
I'm talking about Oxford, not Oxford County.
Well, I think we'd be totally open to, we don't have data on the town of Oxford. This is what we were able to
Again,
locate.
if folks are interested in this room, or others who would be interested, we can start the waiting list today, put their name on it, and when the day comes that we're actually gonna start calling people to see if they're eligible and they're still interested, then we'll have their name. Yeah. Well, let's go. You had a few questions. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. You already asked about the electricity. What about water supply, sewage?
Go ahead.
So there is public water on King Street, and we talked to the water district, and we'll be able to provide public water into the buildings, and I'll go through that in here in a moment when I talk about the site plan a little bit. That building already has a public water, but we'll have new water going into the historic mill buildings and the boiler house. Sanitary sewer, there's a pump station on the end of Robinson Way, that Robinson Commons, that was constructed by the town, and the local sewer district has confirmed that there's capacity within that pump station as well as at the treatment plant for the flow amounts coming from this development. Not a lot of capacity need there. I mean, this is residential nature, it's not industrial or anything like that.
So my question then stems from your answer, is that by tapping into the sewer system, that's going to put increased cost to the town for equipment maintenance to take sewage from 77 units. In addition, it's going to increase the stress on first responder system, 77 elderly units for EMS, fire, and police. So how is that going to be addressed to help cover the cost of the town's added expenses?
I have sign-offs from all the departments involved in this, and they've reviewed the project, and they've commented there's going to be no issues related to that concern.
Well, just maybe I can speak to that a little bit. Although the Caleb Group is a nonprofit, this project will pay property taxes, like every other property owner. Well, not every other, but every other tax-paying entity in town pays property taxes, and so some municipalities, I don't know if Oxford does this, but a lot of municipalities charge a sewer impact fee, schools impact fee, et cetera, if you have a family project. I don't think the town has gone there yet, but this is going to be a tax-paying project.
Yes.
It's my understanding that the waste treatment plant is dramatically underutilized right now, to the point where they're desperate for people to hook up. So this is going to help.
That's pretty much the response that we received from the treatment plant, and in fact, I just got an email today kind of wrapping up their, yes, we have plenty of capacity, and I don't have those numbers, I can look on my phone as to what the numbers were, but you're right. The treatment plant is way below capacity in terms of what it's seeing for flow.
And Maine Housing is actually looking for confirmation, so we're working on our funding application with the state right now, and they're actually looking for confirmation that the town can handle that additional capacity, so they're doing their due diligence too. Go ahead.
I have a few questions. One, how many jobs is this going to generate, both full-time and part-time? And then the second being, kind of piggybacking off of what Mr. Wax was getting there, what is the proposed tax generation going to be for the town as of right now? And also, what is you've asked for a reduction in the tax credits or something to that extent to get a break.
Okay, yeah.
And
So-
what is that break and how much of that?
All right, I'll start with the job. I don't have the data with me, but most of the jobs, apart from the 3 full-time jobs that we discussed, most of the jobs are going to come from the construction itself. So a few jobs will be, generated during the, it's actually essentially 3 phases. I'll go over it. I don't have the numbers with me, but I'm more than happy to share them. I've had to put them in an application, so I can do that later. The second question, taxes?
Yeah,
You
I
wanna
mean,
talk
so,
to it?
so yeah,
Yeah.
we requested a tax abatement from the
Yeah.
town. We're talking to the town manager about it. I don't think anything's come up with the town board officially. The back and forth we've had has made the tax abatement seem much less compelling, so I don't know if we're gonna end up doing it. As of today, we have no tax abatement.
Yeah.
And even, based on the numbers we're talking about, it would be a partial or fractional tax abatement, so we would still be paying something, for sure.
Right, but 70% is a lot different than 20%.
We don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we don't.
Just curious.
Yeah, we don't know.
Okay.
That's double.
Exactly.
Yeah, right, we heard, so, and that has to go to town vote, so that's, that's not something we just decide.
Mhm.
That's sort of heavily discussed and negotiated.
There were some other hands that were
Well,
raised?
I was going to ask a tax question which you addressed.
Yeah.
But I guess you talk about the wastewater plant. What about the transfer station impact? I mean, that's not a really big place. I mean, what's that going to do for what's getting dumped in the landfill?
Typically, solid waste is handled through a contractual service, and so. I
No,
have-
not solid waste, trash.
Right, so solid waste.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So, here locally, all your waste haulers, if it's Pine Tree Waste or.
Be like Casella or Waste Service,
Casella,
ABC Rubbish,
and
something
so
like
they're
that.
paying for dumping, and obviously that charge gets passed along to the Gala Group to pay that. So, beyond that, I don't have any answers or understanding of where the solid waste capacity is at either your landfill or wherever the local town of Oxford's waste disposal. If you have a transfer station, then where's it going from there? I can certainly dig into those sorts of things. We usually just take it for granted. We're gonna hire out contracted service, and it's up to them. They're gonna say, well, here's the charge. If you do it on an annual basis, and you get the low bidder, and there's a number of services, and then they're gonna figure out where to bring the waste.
I got a question about the cost of the project. Did I read someplace where the cost of the project was gonna be approximately $32 million?
Exactly.
Oh, correct.
Yeah, so it's,
Is that the whole project?
yeah, so I'll just keep going with the presentation and you'll see why. I didn't put numbers in it, but, we can give you ballpark numbers. So, as I touched base on, we're looking, it's gonna be 3 phases, right? 2 of them will be housing, and the first one will be, demo and abatement. So, first one will be abating, meaning cleaning up the buildings, right? And then we'll be demoing the majority of the warehouses. So that means, we'll be abating everything and we'll be demoing all of this here, right? So whatever is not in red is what's gonna go bye-bye, in our, warehouses today, right?
Could you explain abatement? Is that removal of hazardous material?
Yeah, lead, asbestos, paint, yeah, removal of possible, tanks that are still kicking around.
Well, the point I kind of like leading up to here too, so you guys are gonna put, when everything's all said and done, you're gonna have $32 million in this project.
Yeah, so
Okay, stop right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So one would like to think that probably that property value, when it's all done, is probably gonna be worth what? $32 million, right?
All right, so I'll let Andy talk to that. There's a big difference between
And then-
market rate versus
I'm
affordable
looking at,
housing.
What we're gonna get back tax revenue out of this.
Well, so keep in mind the income restrictions. So we're not allowed to rent this at full market rates.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah, and the rents are gonna be pretty significantly below market rate. And they're gonna be in place for 45 years. And there can be heavy restrictions on the resale and all this, and the refinancing. So the value, the way that the assessor or an appraiser would look at this is they look at typically 3 ways of valuing it for the purposes of tax assessment. One's based on replacement cost or construction cost. One is based on similar transactions in the market where properties like this change hands, of which there are very few, because the Maine housing has to approve every transaction. And the third way they look at it is what's called the income method. They look at your actual income on the property, and they run it through some formulas, and they say, okay, we think the value is X. And based on the comps we looked at, and there's no comps in Oxford that I'm aware of. I had to look a little further afield, but we think the value is going to come in somewhere around $75,000 per apartment. So, yeah, so what's the math on that? Something like, yeah. So 75,000, I just remember 75,000, but times 77 units, that would be
5,777,000.
Yeah, so somewhere in the range of 5 to 6 million is the way that we think the assessor would look at it if they follow the precedents that we see in other parts of the state, which is way different than 32 million. And I get that.
So if I write you a check for that right now?
Anybody that tries to sell this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So the point is that even if we tried to sell it, the buyer inherits all of the affordability restrictions, which are deeded to the property. So they get recorded in the registry of deeds, and they're on the books for 45 years. And there's strict enforcement from the Maine State Housing Authority. They come in and audit the books. They do third-party audits of the income certifications. Because if we don't follow the rules, that's tax fraud, and they take it very seriously. So, if you look at this as an economic development question, I guess another way to look at it would be that the households moving in here are, we think, going to largely come from the catchment area around the town or within the town. The typical profile of someone moving into this house is an older person who wants to downsize. They have an older house that they don't want to deal with snow shoveling. They don't want to deal with the roof. They don't want to deal with high heating costs. They would much rather be in a one-bedroom apartment. They are vacating a house that then can be sold. Presumably, it's a bigger house that they raise their family in. This is, again, just typical, kind of stereotypical profile. And the people, then that opens up a housing unit for sale for maybe a young family that has the energy to go shovel the sidewalks and everything. That's sort of and so sort of indirectly, this is a way to support workforce housing in that way. If you view it strictly through the lens of, does this project pay for itself with taxes? The answer is going to be no. My understanding of the questions in front of the planning board tonight are related to site plan approval, which has to do with parking, traffic, utility connections. We've gone through the zoning board of appeals and had approval for the 77 units. And we've gone through all the proper channels on that. So I guess I just want to make the point that if the questions are based on whether we have 77 units or not, I would just remind everybody, previous proposals for fewer units didn't get very far. And if we want to keep the site looking the way it looks today, then I would understand why you wouldn't want to support this project.
Now, I might be far wrong, but you might be able to help Ms. Kinsey. I understood Robinsons owned some of the buildings. Did they, or has that been long gone?
So
to go with the marina, and how is that?
So the marina is not a part of this project, and I believe actually there's another structure behind the post office that's not going to be utilized for this. I think everything else that you might be thinking of is privately owned. They own, yeah, the grist mill. Yeah, they only own basically what you're seeing them demolitioning and remaining in place.
So they're able to tear down some of those buildings.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that would be good.
Yeah, so that's what I was just saying, the demolition, spelled it out, demolition. So everything that's not in the red box will be demolished, and that's the majority of the warehouses on the site. So this, what's called addition 5 right here, when that's gone, that's what's gonna reopen the access to the footbridge.
I just,
Yeah, and then there's the grist mill, a piece of land here that we're not touching for now. The grist mill's proving too expensive to redevelop, so.
I'd like to suggest we just, for
Proceed.
length of the meeting,
Yeah.
to just, you finish and then have questions later on at the very end.
Thank you.
So,
That's fine.
so let's just have them finish there, because I'd like to get
Sounds good.
Steve's,
All right, so this is phase 0. So phase 1 is what we call Robinson Apartments. It's the 30 units over the footprint of the warehouse, so essentially this U-shaped building. That's what we're currently applying for funding with Maine Housing. So single story, 30 units with a central courtyard, and then footpaths, and then a bunch of parking. And then phase 2, later down the road, that's the historic component. I picked Robinson Lofts as a name. And I'd rather live in that building, but anyways, because of big windows, but that's just me. So you'll have 45 units in the mill buildings and 2 in the boiler house. That might be nice too, because just 2 units. But anyways, so that's the plan, the big picture. So in terms of monies, you're touching on money. This is about like $1.6 million right here. We're able to access that money because we're a nonprofit. If you were a for-profit developer, you would not be able to access those grants and loans. So under the ownership of the Taylor Foundation, we can access that money to actually do the cleanup and the demo. And we actually, I don't know if Terry is here. Yes, we actually just applied for some CDBG money at the state level to help with the demolition of the warehouses. So it's very complex financing. It's like a lot of sources. It can get even more complex. It's competitive funding, so that's why it takes a long time to line up. All right, so this is the first phase that I just touched base on. It's the site plan. It's Steve's drawing really, so I'm gonna talk to it.
So Suzanne has just talked about the U-shaped building, again, single-story building with 30 units in it. We're proposing a new driveway. The existing parking lot that's out there today is located in this spot. We're going to put a new driveway here, come in, and then have an access into the building, and then a loop around. We have to have a fairly flat zone down in here for handicap parking, because we can have a number of ADA units between the 2 buildings. But in this first phase, to build out, so the bulk of the warehouse has all been torn out. This building has a perimeter wall system and foundation, stays in place, but we do have to do new foundations and new wall systems on the interior. Walk into the space today, it's just basically a big wide open warehouse. There's old office space along here, but that will all be renovated and taken out and so forth. This is basically a double loaded corridor, so entrance, corridor down the middles with units on either side and mechanical spaces and so forth. Common area in here, this is because it's in the building today, basically when it's all torn out, relatively flat area, nice. We can restore it. The idea is to make it common area, green, landscaping, some of the renderings that Suzanne will show, very nice, very, right now, pretty fancy. We'll see how it plays out relative to budget and everything ultimately. So that's the initial phase. Obviously, the demo keeps the historic mill buildings in place, but they're not yet to be developed under that phase 1. Go to the next slide. So then ultimately, and back to that first phase, to the question of parking, we have 30 units. We're going to provide 45 parking spaces, which is that 1.5 spaces per unit, which is your local code. We believe ultimately that not as many parking spaces will be needed in this development. And in fact, in our second phase development, now we're showing a total of 90 spaces initially, with the ability to add in additional spaces up to 116 spaces, which would be the 1.5 ratio per, if we have 77 units, we need 116 parking spaces. I can tell you, based on my experience here in southern Maine, with these sorts of projects, that would be way more than enough parking, because there's gonna be quite a few tenants. And I understand this is Oxford, and it's not as proximate to, more urban bus transit type scenarios, but nonetheless, the population who lives in these, quite a few of them don't have a vehicle. They're relying on others or what have you, because it's just expensive, they don't want to drive anymore. So, the proposal, again, we have that parking lot coming down within that existing building area, so it's somewhat hard to visualize today because it's just building, but it'll all be torn out. This is also building space that would be just returned into a parking lot. Outside of all of those areas would be all landscaping. Ultimately, I think there's about 113,000 square feet of footprint today out there for building space. In the full development, we'd be at about 35,000 square foot. So we cut back building square footage quite a bit. Just footprint area represented. We would have a new or second driveway once this phase were to take place, tying back into what's out there today, the exact pavement. There's an easement that the Robinson Marina ownership retains for access. So the pavement that's on the outside of the existing building going in between the marina warehouse, as I understand it from that owner, that's a storage space he's using as a storage space right now, and the mill building that will be coming down. We have to keep that pavement, that condition as is. So we're just going to simply tie into that, so we would have another driveway here on the south end of the project, and a driveway over here on the north end. The existing driveway that's right here on the corner would be closed up. We're showing again that sidewalk condition, and that extends through this kind of common area with connection to what I understand to be the name of Edwards Bridge. That's at least one map I saw. Don't know locally if that's how people reference to that, but I think it was on the FEMA map. It references it as Edwards Bridge. Number of 88 units between all of the development, 21 potential ADA units, so that would be designed for, and again, that's why we have to have a fair amount of flat zone here, because ADA and ADA routes into a building are relatively flat areas. That works out all right. The idea being that within the building framework here, we're going to keep all of the foundation structure that's on that dam side, obviously. It's somewhat intrinsic with the dam. All old granite, seems to be solid as a rock. You have to do some infill within the old penstock where the water would come in and move the equipment and so forth. So that would get infilled with just some concrete slurry, bring it up to grade and done. Because I've worked on multiple old woolen mills in southern Maine. It's pretty much what we always do with those, fill those in. But we'll also take advantage of that foundation wall and keep that all in place, again, because of the need to have the paving over here. The boiler house, it's a little tricky because there's so much building space around it that's going to be taken out. It's really hard to visualize exactly how that's going to play itself out because it's basically all surrounded by building to be demoed around it. But it's part of the project because the historic consultant has concluded that, oh, that's an eligible space for historic tax credits, so it's worthy of keeping it.
Yes, historic significance.
Historic significance. So that's kind of the gist of the site plan piece of it here. I had referenced earlier to the questions about utilities. The water line that comes into this building today, in fact, the water lines go around the building and connect out into Main Street, so there's kind of a loop system there, which is fairly beneficial relative to redundancy for service and so forth. We'll have some new water. There's a public fire hydrant here over off the lake side of it, and we're able to tie in off of that water main to provide a new water service. Since we're basically taking out all the building in the middle, we've got to have standalone services for the old mill space. And similarly, we'll have a sanitary sewer that would have just a small lift station, pump up the street, that comes down, goes down to the pump station that's located over to the northeast corner, or northwest corner Plenty of power within King Street and surrounding the area for both of these buildings. And Suzanne referenced the fact that there'll be an emergency generator for both of the buildings or all of the spaces here. So that's certainly good as well.
Thank you. So in terms of 3D picture rendering, this is a bird's eye view of the site. So obviously a U-shaped building with 40 units. This would probably be the main entrance. And then the historic mill building and the main entrance would be here. The floor plans, we have the property management office or on the floor as well. Obviously, as we just talked about, community room, laundry room in each one. Then another pictures, that's a architectural rendering of phase one. What we aspire to do, for those who are familiar with real estate development, is always what you want to do versus the reality, how much you can leverage in financing. So we're still planning for a U-shaped building. It might just look a little different because we need to bring down the numbers. Then this is the same rendering as the first page, but this is the mill. That's it. So do you want to talk to this? I think we already touched base on it, but we can talk about the traffic.
Traffic a little bit.
If that's what it is.
So at the previous meeting, the board had requested a traffic assessment of sorts, and what I provided them, working through our office, is a traffic assessment for the project. So I'll go through a number of different things quickly here on what we've reported. First, just what's the reported traffic volumes on King Street. The Maine DOT does have a small amount of information in terms of the annual, what they call the annual average daily traffic. Basically, they put the tubes out on the road and do the counts. The most recent counts were 2017 here, than anything more recent than that, unfortunately. But basically, between the intersection of 121 and King Street here, so just north of the site, they have a DT of basically a little over 2,000 vehicles per day, which is, okay, that's pretty reasonable. It is interesting, as you go further southbound King Street, approaching Route 11, Cohut intersection, it drops down to 660 in a day. So obviously the mostly the lake traffic, I'm guessing, is contributing to that. But from the perspective of traffic volumes, 2,000 a day on a road like that is, I wouldn't consider high, certainly. Then we looked at trip generation and how much trip and traffic will a senior housing project. We looked at a couple of different categories, one being affordable housing, because this does fall into that category, but probably more appropriate, we think, is a senior adult category. And it's just multiplying the number of units by certain factors that are within what we call the Institute of Transportation Engineers numbers, and they have some data for all of that. So we look at a number of different time periods. Weekdays, so the total number of trips to be generated by 77 units of senior housing would be 249 trips, basically 50-50 in and out. So 125 trips exiting and 125 entering. So not a lot in the course of a full day. Then you break that down, and more often when you're doing traffic work and traffic analysis, you're looking at the peak hour, meaning basically morning peak and afternoon peak. Going to work, coming back home. Then we look in two ways with that. Peak hour of the street, the adjacent street, and then peak hour of the actual generator. And that can be off just a little bit. AM and PM, AM peak hour for the street, total of 15 trips for this development under the senior adult category, and then 19 trips under the afternoon PM peak hour. When we look at the actual development, though, those go up slightly. 22 in the AM in the morning and 23 in the afternoon. Again, those are split as basically 10 in, 12 out, or entering at 12, for example, on the PM generator would be 12 entering, 11 exiting. It's, rough split of 50-50, 48, 52, and so forth. Then the Saturday peak hour is our last one. We look at that. in the peak hour, whenever that peak hour might be on a Saturday, maybe it's 11 o'clock in the morning, maybe it's noontime on a Saturday, what have you, 25 trips again. So it's not a big trip generation. The threshold number relative to dealing with DOT is 100 trips. You need to have 100 trips coming from your development to necessarily warrant having to go to the DOT to get a permit. It would be a traffic movement permit. And we're far below that threshold, which is pretty common for senior housing sort of projects. So the third thing we looked at was the site distances at our driveways, which I showed you where those two driveways are. And we have signage there, 15 and 25 mile an hour. Looking at the 25 mile an hour speed limit, site distance that you need looking in both directions. When you come out to the driveway, you gotta have at least 200 feet. To the northerly new driveway, we have over 300 feet looking to the north, which that's a pretty long straightaway, obviously. Then looking to the right, which is looking to the hard corner, there's 210 feet there. So, okay, we need 200 feet, we have 210. The southerly driveway, again, looking to the north, to that hard corner, is the one that's probably most important. 280 feet there, actually, so that's pretty good. And then looking south, that's pretty long straightaway, well over 300 feet in terms of sight distance. So felt comfortable with all of that. One of the things that we set forth as a recommendation and what we could do is some signage pieces, some additional signage notifying of the driveways for oncoming traffic in each direction, and then no parking signage along King Street as well, knowing that there's a potential concern about that. Then finally, we looked at accident histories and what the DOT has for history. So they work with the police departments, and whatever accidents there are, they have a pretty good solid database. Anybody's entitled, go just online to Maine DOT and you go to their accident history piece. You type in the address and up pops accident. You give them a time frame. So I gave them 5 years. What do they have for the last 5 years? Most recent past 5 years. More often than not, we only look at 3, but I thought let me broaden it out and see what we have for accident history. Only been 4 accidents in the last 5 years recorded from 121 intersection to a point a couple miles south of the site. 2 were vehicular accidents and 2 people hit deer. So not really anything of substance relative to.
That was the past 5 years up to now.
I think it went from 2019 to 2023. So that's the breadth of the traffic work that's relatively traditional and normal in terms of doing this sort of an assessment for this sort of project. And you folks have that hands.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Yes.
When you were figuring out the traffic, have you guys kind of figured out with, 62 and a half to whatever age, what really the composition is going to be? Because if you're 62, you're probably going to work another 5 years, so there's going to be people coming out for work and such. Have you kind of figured, I don't know what the housing climate is in Oxford. Do we have a shortage with all the apartments on 26 and, for seniors and?
That I couldn't speak to necessarily the apartment mix. But the numbers that we use to generate the traffic volumes are based on senior adult, which is basically that 62, and it's accounting for the fact that maybe there's still some of those tenants who are working or not, but it's relatively still a low number in terms of trip generation.
Did you have a question?
Only on the residents or on visitors?
No, that's looking at units in general. It's not looking at individual residents or otherwise. It's just saying under a category of senior housing, how many units do you have? These are the national numbers that they say, okay, you multiply the number of units by a certain factor, that's your trip generation.
I will take just one more question, Rebecca. Yeah.
This isn't parking related, but what will happen to the smokestack that's on part of the warehouse?
Yeah, it's coming down.
It's coming down. You sad?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we'll take you.
Go ahead.
In 2017, the speed limit route past that building was 25 miles an hour, it's now 30. And there are those of us who live on King Street who are concerned about the lack of complete sidewalks that would allow you to walk a loop all the way around, going on to Pleasant Street and then coming back around King Street. And the extensive foot traffic in the summer coming up to King Street going to the beach. And you also have increased traffic, significant increased traffic in the summer. Does that, any of the studies show any of that increased traffic, or what, do you have any plans on the sidewalk and getting the speed limit lowered again?
Well, right now, there's a posted, if you're coming southbound from 121 past the rec center, approaching the hard corner, there is a 15-mile-an-hour sign, yellow 15-mile-an-hour sign. Granted, not sure how well people pay attention to it. My sense is, though, that the hard corner itself has a tendency to hopefully slow people down. If it was a big issue, and I was thinking that, well, when I pull out the traffic accident data, it might tell me something here that, oh, there's some issues, but I was actually pleasantly surprised for our side of things, but kind of interestingly, not seeing as many accidents as I thought there might have been. And then coming northbound, there's another sign for 25. I know the 30-mile-an-hour sign, as you come around the corner and you go maybe another quarter of a mile or so, then there's a 30-mile-an-hour sign for basically southbound. I didn't see any other northbound signs. I don't think, maybe there's one a little bit further south of the site on King Street, or as you're coming up.
Yeah, if I can expand on that a little bit, because we went to a select board hearing. We, as residents of King Street, were very concerned about the speeding, because it is out of control. And at 25 miles an hour, we were concerned, and we asked, what can we do about this? It's a state road. The state did a traffic study, and in their state infinite wisdom, said, oh, the answer is to increase the speed limit to 30 miles an hour, which is what they did. Because apparently the speed limit is set by the 85th percentile of people that travel the road, regardless of how dangerous they're going. So at 25, we were concerned. At 30, we're more concerned. And I'm very much in favor of this project. I would like to see the speed limit set back to 25.
Yeah, how long ago did that occur?
2 or 3 years.
So I can look into the record change.
Wow. It's in the solitude.
That's not something that can.
No.
You have no sidewalk.
We want to rein it in.
This gentleman in the back.
And with him too, I'm kind of, this project sounds really good, but a traffic issue that I see is coming off of Route 121 onto King Street. If you're heading, you are coming to a blind intersection. You have to come to a complete stop to see if there's traffic coming on Pleasant Street in through town. Even though it's posted 25 miles an hour, it is very difficult sometimes to make that corner.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I have now driven that a few times, trying to understand what that movement, I went up to Follies, I guess it is, and did something, and came up to that and noticed, because it's on a corner.
Yeah. It's a new bridge, and the old bridge, when the old bridge was on, it went straight onto King Street and stopped the traffic on 121. Now the traffic on 121 does not stop.
Right.
And it becomes very difficult.
Again, I hadn't seen any particular prevalence of the accident history yet, but, so Mr. Chairman,
I
I'm
need
looking
to
to maybe just turn this over now for public comment to you folks.
Sure, yeah, and I've got two things to read from two townsfolk that weren't able to be here. They want this entered into the record. But yeah, as far as the speed issues, that's not really an issue for the KO group and this project. That's up to you addressing that with the state again, or the police enforcing the speed limit and all those other stuff.
Just say something. Sidewalk. To me, that's a problem. Okay? You're gonna have more people at this apartment. People are gonna be walking. When you come past the rec center and you go up the hill, there's no sidewalk there. People are walking in the roadway. You can't see them till you get to the crest of the hill.
Again,
That
that's,
sidewalk was continued.
again, that's another issue,
I mean, it's
issue
an
with.
issue here, they're gonna put the people.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
not
bring
gonna
that- you
have
can
any
bring
bearing
that
on
issue
this
before the
project.
town on another matter.
Yep.
So let me read these, Dear Kingston Brown, I am unable to attend the public hearing on March 13th, 2024, but ask that my comments below be added as part of the record. As an Oxford homeowner and taxpayer for the past 10 years, I have driven past the old Robinson Mill building and environs hundreds and more times, must be a typo, and have wondered what could be, and envisioned hundreds and more times, and have wondered what could be done to improve in that deteriorating property. Recently, I have had the opportunity to review the Caleb Group's plans for the redevelopment of the Robinson Mill, and I am in complete support of their plan. I am grateful that the Caleb Group plans to spend over $30 million to create housing for those Oxford residents who need it most. This type of investment in the well-being of our older residents is unprecedented, and it would be irresponsible for the town to not approve this plan to help our residents. I also support the Caleb Group's plan because it will restore and preserve an historic building that is important to our town's history. As taxpayers in Oxford, we all are fortunate that an organization as accomplished and responsible as the Caleb Group is interested in helping the town of Oxford to make this important transition for a town landmark in need of drastic repair and rehabilitation. We should not miss this important opportunity to improve the site and to provide low-income housing to those in need of decent housing. Please add my comments to public comments presented at this meeting. Sincerely, Frederick James Skinner, 109 Beechwoods Road.
And he did that as the TLEA director, I believe.
Okay, he's the TLE.
Yep. Thompson Lake Environmental
Thompson Lake
Association.
Environmental Association.
They're
Okay.
well aware.
Good, we all got it. Well done.
And I think that's just a repeat from another member of that board.
Okay, I still need to read it.
Yeah, you might just say who was echoing that same statement
Yes.
instead of reading it again. Yeah.
Yes, he's in complete support of the program. William Booth, 171 Covet Road.
Yeah.
All right, so, yeah, we can have a few final comments,
Yeah,
but,
can I just ask a couple of really redundant questions there, because I've had a little hard time. So number one, in order to be in this building, you have to be at least 62, regardless of where you came from, what your religion, race, color, all that stuff, but you gotta be 62.
right.
And
You have to be a human
You have
being.
to have the ability to
Can't be a
pay
dog.
X number of dollars per month, whatever
Yeah.
it's finally, 853. but
Yep.
As long as we stay on those framework, I know what people are thinking, and I agree with them.
Up to 60%
I'm
of
gonna
their
get involved in
money.
a political debate here.
So just a couple kind of technical clarifications. The head of household has to be 62 or older. There could be other household members, but they're all one bedrooms. So we envision most of them being.
So me and my 25-year-old trophy wife.
Yes.
As long as you're the head of household, yeah. And then if we were to magically open our doors in 2024, the rents would be $53 a month. But the rents, this is just kind of a subtle point, but they're indexed to inflation. They're actually indexed to incomes looking back 5 years. So as every year goes on, if we were opening in 24, they would look back to say 2018 or 2019, and they'd take a 5-year average. That would be the rent. That would give us the income targeting, and so the rents will kind of slowly creep up over time. Just one thing.
Right. You got a question?
Oh, me?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry, yeah.
My wife and I have been here for 25 years and live down off Covet Road near Bill Booth. During that time, we frequently traveled King Street, and We've been full-time residents for about the last 11 years. We saw this presentation. I'm president of TLEA, and what a fantastic opportunity this is for developing property for the good of the town and the good of the residents of this area. We've seen the condition of Robinson Mill deteriorate due to lack of maintenance and whatever you wish to call it over the last 25 years. So what we would like to see is the addition and restoration of the mill with senior citizen apartments rather than market rate condos, which at one point I heard was going into that possibility. This would fill a huge need for the people of this area. The concept, as we've seen this evening, is beautiful. I do understand the concerns about the traffic, but I think that's been addressed this evening. In my opinion, this plan causes minimal disruption and probably a minimal increase in the traffic. It benefits the local community far outweigh the possible problems. And another small thing is that it has no impact on the schools by adding these people, and there will be an increase in the taxes, as they said. So, but thank you.
Thank you. Hey, would you like to
I
comment?
just have a question. In the beginning of the meeting, you said that you guys denied this, and they went to the appeals board and was approved. I'm just curious why you chose to.
Yeah, so we denied it because of the square footage. And Steve, could you explain that again for us?
Yeah. So the local zoning code has a minimum lot area provision per unit, and it's 4,000 square feet. So you basically take the size of this property divided by 4,000 square feet, basically says 50 units under that zoning provision would be allowed, 50 units, and somebody had mentioned that as earlier on. But we went to the ZBA, so the board heard that, and said, well, the board doesn't have the authority to grant an appeal to that, because we were looking for the 77, and hopefully it's been clear here that the 77 is derived from the economics of it all, how to support the cost of doing this project. $33 or $32 million is an awful lot of money for a 4.5 acre piece of property. Just no doubt. Regardless of where you are in Maine, that's a lot of money. So we went to the zoning board and had to go through that appeal, give them various criteria to satisfy, and we felt like we made a compelling enough case that the board found in our favor and granted us basically a reduction to some 2,500 square feet to get to the 77, actually it was 80. And just for clarity, hopefully not muddy the waters, this project is still in design phase interior, and we have to figure out exactly how the mechanical units are going to work and so forth. So we offered a little bit of a slough factor. It won't go above 80. We're pretty certain it's going to be 77 units. So to disregard maybe how that discussion had played itself out. 77 units, and we have a reduced minimum lot area to some 2,500 square feet per unit to get to that number. So in getting the ZBA's approval to that, that allowed us to then basically reapply to the planning board now that we have this authority that the proper agency of sorts here locally has granted to us to go to the board, since it's not a board decision on that, but now that they know we have the authority to have a reduced minimum lot area, we're back before them. I've felt that in the previous meetings we've given the overview of the project in hopefully a clear enough manner that relative to your codes and our application that we set forth with the board, I try to go through it as clearly as I could and concisely, so okay, here's your standards and here's how we meet it and so forth, and that's how we presented it, and we're hopeful here for some form of action by the board tonight.
So does that make sense?
It
was.
does. Yeah, it does. I have one more question though, if I can. I'm just curious, how many of these apartments are gonna have the lakefront view? And it sounds like the rent is the same no matter what, so how are you gonna determine?
I'd like to save that question for another time. I just want your public comment.
I don't have an answer. I'd have to actually do the math.
You don't know that.
Go ahead,
It's always
Sharon.
regardless of the unit.
So I'm gonna address the traffic and what Mike was talking about and his wife, because I live 8 houses from the mill. While that's a beautiful building, I'm not a supporter of this project in having 77 units. I don't share the same opinion as some, and some probably approve it as it is, but I do not. I live on the corner of Pismo Beach Road and King Street. Mike lives up the road in the old Robinson house. The speed limit on that street is outrageous, as all of us in that section there know. It's not 15, it's not 25, it's not 30. It's not your responsibility to fix the speed limit, so everybody should know that. That's the responsibility of the town and or the state, because King Street is a state road. And in putting more sidewalks, it's not the responsibility of the state to build the sidewalks, it's the responsibility of the towns at the town's penny. So anybody that knows King Street knows that we just put sidewalks from the corner of Pismo Beach Road to almost to Mike's house, but we didn't go past his house. So any additional sidewalks that are needed is going to be the expense of the town to put sidewalks in on the other side of the street or extend it on the same side of the street. And to Mr. Wax's question, yes, that will bring more rescue, so that's another expense to the town. So even though your project is stated to be 32 million, it's going to, I would defer what it's gonna cost, what Kingston's going to assess that building. I'm sorry, with all due respect, not your analogy of it. I've worked in municipal government for over 25 years. I know the process. For everybody here who doesn't know, the planning board has no other choice but to approve this project tonight. I thank them for having a public hearing so that all the neighbors and anybody else that wanted to know about this, that didn't know about it, are able to hear about it. They have no choice now because the appeals board granted the appeal on a hardship criteria. Well, I also know if you create your own hardship, you don't qualify for a hardship appeal. And I would challenge that, but it's very expensive to challenge. So there's a lot of things that probably a lot of people don't know. Anybody can go in there. This isn't just like putting a house in that corner. I know how fast traffic travels there. This girl lives there. Claudette lives on that street. Pat lived on this street. They may share a different opinion, Barbara, yes, you too, than I do. I think the project is beautiful, but at 77 units, no, I think it's too much for that corner. And even though there are a lot of people in the town of Oxford who may qualify to get a unit there, there's a lot that will not. So that's going to mean that there's going to be a lot of outside people who are going to qualify to have housing there. And when you start putting that many people on King Street, all over the place, it's too many people. So that's my opinion, and that's why I do not approve of it at 77.
Well, thanks for sharing your concerns. We hear you, and I'm sorry you're not supportive of the project. We'll do what we can to follow up on a couple of your items. And as a reminder, it's a two-phase, well, 3 phases, but it's a 2-phase housing project. So, the first phase of 30 units is probably going to take at least a year and a half to get a shovel in the ground if we're able to get the financing first time around, right? Because it's competitive. So you're not going to see housing for at least 2.5 years. And by the time that's built, the other one will be, the other housing component will be hopefully in the pipeline with Maine Housing. So I think at that point, once the 30 units are in place, we can really assess and figure out how much of an impact the property has on the street and the town. And then we can continue, if it's the path we're going to pursue, see, work with the town and the state to see what we can do about speed limits and other factors. But we hear you, and we'll see what we can do on our end to influence that.
Go ahead, Al.
I have a question for Sharon. Hey Sharon, do you know how many people are working at Robinson, whether they're in the day
You have to know that.
I don't know that because I never worked there and my husband never worked there.
300?
It was about 300.
300?
There were two shifts when I bought the house, and I never noticed that.
It was three shifts.
But you never noticed.
They all went on horses.
Was that, yeah, horse and buggy, right? Not actual vehicle?
There used to be a train in town.
Plus there was the Mills General Store, 2 gas.
Any more public comment? Just comments on, you want to say yay or nay towards the project? Okay, yeah, just hold on a second. Go ahead.
I have a question about the construction aspect of this. $32 million going into the property, how much of that is going out to contractors? And with your funding sources, are there restrictions on your contractor pool? Is it union only? Are you going to pre-qualify? Is there a minimum size?
So the first phase 0 is 1.6 million. I think it's Davis Bacon wages, which are pretty much in line with what GC's asked for in the state of Maine. It's not going to be a big difference, right?
Yeah, so-
You can talk to me.
Yeah, there's no union requirement. We're allowed to work with any contractor that we feel is qualified. The only maybe financial thing that would come into play is that they have to be fully bondable. So they have to have a strong enough balance sheet to show to our funders that they can float any kind of financial difficulties. So that does limit the contractor pool to the bigger commercial contractors in Maine. The typical interviewees for a project like this would be outfits like Keeper Construction out of Lewiston. We're talking to Great Falls Construction, they're based in Gorham. Portland Builders, based in Portland.
They all have a background in building affordable housing and working with Maine housing, understanding the requirements. They're all Maine based. We're not going out of state.
Yeah, but they do have to have a certain critical mass to be able to show that this project, help show that this project is feasible.
Is it going to be a straight low bid, or is it going to be negotiated?
No, we don't have to take the lowest bidder. So if we have concerns that the lowest bidder is unqualified for some reason, or if it's just like weirdly an outlier, we don't have to take it.
We're definitely doing an RFP.
Yeah, and we're obligated by the funding to do some kind of public request for proposals. It doesn't have to be announced in the newspaper, but it could be an invited pool based on a short list that we agree with Maine Housing. But we have to go out to at least 3 qualified
We might do
contractors.
RFQ and then RFP,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So RFQ is request for qualifications. So you might have a pool of 6 or 7 GCs. You assess them on their qualifications. You cut down the list to 3, maybe 4, and then that's when you issue the RFP. And you look at numbers.
Great, thank you.
All right, then you had.
I've got a question and a comment. The question is there an approximate square foot each part, 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms?
So it's straight, it's just 1 bedrooms, there are no 2 bedrooms. The average probably is 650 square feet. It's the average, right? You can't build the same unit everywhere, especially in the mill.
Well, no,
yeah.
I'm saying.
So right now I'm looking at about phase 1 because that's the one we're applying for. So it's like the high 500s to the low 700s. With that said, as Steve mentioned, we might rejiggle the floor plan. There's some things I want to move around in there. Make sure there's community room with sun. So yeah, we're fine tuning things. So again, these are schematic drawings, meaning it's early on. We're not in the CD phase. We need construction drawings, but that's the average rate right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
My comment now, everybody, I've lived in this area now for over 70 years. Now, I remember when there used to be 1 grocery store and a couple regular stores right in town. There was hundreds of people working at that factory. There was traffic back then. It's going to be nice to see the town being a town again. And you have to have people to do it.
Thank you.
I think it's a nice one.
Thank you.
Hi,
Okay,
Kathy,
you're next.
this will be short. I'm Kathy Kay. My husband and I we've been here for 14 years now, and we love it here. And we are thrilled about this project, absolutely thrilled, and it's badly needed. The state of Maine is a very old state, and this fills an important need. So you have our approval.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, one question, one comment. Question is, based on the mill's location, is it falling under the town's shoreline zoning ordinance? And if so, has it passed all the checks to be sure it's going to fall within
So
necessary criteria?
part of that lot size issue that hung up the project, it was actually a dual ordinance, so shoreline zoning and zoning, which in the past, the town voted to amend their zoning ordinance specifically for a project to lower the density requirement. And so that's going to pass the straight face test if the board approves it. They're going to be a shoreline zoning, site plan amendment, site plan approval, subdivision amendment. It's kind of a three for tonight because there's just so much going on there. And the Mill Redevelopment District is its own district specific to this zone. So yes, it's to answer your question, yes.
That was the question, because it is its own separate zone. Is it still fall into the purview of the shoreline zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Or is it immune from that?
No, it's District 1 and Mill Redevelopment all in one.
And then as far as the comment goes, kind of leading back to my other question, the project looks wonderful. I hear what folks are saying that are in support of it. But before I can commit any support to it, I would expect other townspeople would like to see some clear financials in terms of cost benefit relative to the town before you're able to pass judgment. Just by the simple numbers, by the number of units, the rent charge per month, even not considering the subsidy for electricity that you pay, it's going to cost over 40 years before Caleb recoups its investment. So I don't see how you say solvent and consider this a doable project. Where's the break point? 50 units wasn't enough, and now 77 units takes over 40 years. Longer than that, if you need to subsidize the utility.
So
How does that work?
The way it works is we bring in as much financing as we can from as many sources as we can because we're pursuing the affordable housing tax credits because Caleb is a nonprofit. We have access, and this is what we do. We of the 32 million, I could look up the numbers, but probably 28 million of that is paid for by all of us as federal taxpayers and state taxpayers. So the biggest bulk of it are the federal affordable housing tax credits. There's also federal historic tax credits. There are state historic tax credits. That, well, you should have gone to the ZBA hearing because we got into the gory details of all that. And we made the case for why we needed 77 units. So you're right, the rents don't pay for the whole project. That's the whole point of bringing in all this outside funding. If you expected this project to pay for itself, no housing would be built in Oxford County because you would have to charge probably $2,500 a month for a one bedroom in Oxford to get a project to pay for itself using market rate financing. And nobody's going to do that deal.
Understood. But there's still going to be, as Sharon pointed out, additional cost burden on the town, ongoing basis, just like we incurred with sewer, just like we incurred with casino coming in.
So if you're, this
project is going to bring, I'm sure, with 77 units of senior housing, more of the same. So that's one part of the comment. The other then is going to follow that with the plan of it being senior housing and held by Caleb. How long does that guarantee go on for? Is it in perpetuity, or is there a time limit where it can then become a different character?
45 years.
It's 45 years.
Yeah, it's 45 years, and as I mentioned,
I won't be around by then.
And when the 45 years is up, or some of the financing runs out, and you've got to renew, we re-up the money and we re-up the affordability. So it keeps getting extended every single time. So it's pretty much perpetuity.
The question.
I would like, do you have a question and comment?
I have a quick comment.
Okay, good.
I actually grew up in Lynn, So
Oh,
when I
really?
went, yeah,
Oh, well,
St. Mary's
our neighbor.
Girls. So I've been up here for 35 years. I liked the project. When I was down to a family gathering at Christmas, I kind of did a deep dive on you guys and kind of rode by a couple of properties and found out that, I guess, Joan Sawyer, the one that started the Caleb Group, is a friend of a friend. Only heard good things about you guys as a nonprofit.
Oh, that's good, thank you.
I think it's a good idea. I do think we have a lot of problems maybe with traffic coming up and like Sharon Jackson said, sidewalks and stuff like that. I'm actually closer to it. I'm 2 doors up from her, but a little bit closer. But I think it's what we need. I think other than that, that place would be rat infested for the next 20 years.
Thank you.
I think it's a great thing.
I should get your name down and mention
I will.
it
I'll
to
speak
our,
with you
the head of our
afterwards.
organization, because her daughter started it with her dad.
I know. She worked at Girls Inc. for a while, yeah.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn and finish the meeting.
Maybe.
Unless it's super, you gonna make a comment?
The only thing that I see, okay, it maybe worded differently, but it's saying senior housing.
So
It's not.
it's older adults.
Older adults
Yeah.
and families.
Not in family, it's 1 bedroom, it's not
Low
in
income,
family.
anybody can go in there.
62-year-old.
The head of household has to
Is
be
that,
62 or
can any,
older.
if you get federal funding, you cannot restrict on people who go in there.
We can restrict based on age and income.
Age, you can.
Age and income.
Age and income, yeah.
So,
Exactly.
right, exactly, okay. But from what I've seen with all your other projects, they were all listed the same as senior, multifamily, disabled, or even teens.
Disabled is ADA, it's the ADA units that we have planned. You're required to have a minimum amount, we're adding a few more. It's, yeah.
So if they
But there's
meet the
no
criteria, they can come in, it's not just seniors. That's what I'm-
Well, I'd like to,
62,
The
62,
ADA, the
it's
ADA is gonna have to be seniors, though, right?
Right.
Everybody has to be
62 and above, it's not below
62 and above.
62.
It's a one-bedroom. It's gonna be closed, not adjourned. Not adjourning,
Closed.
closing.
all right, I would like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing?
Do I have a second?
Hello?
All right, the meeting is closed, the public hearing is closed as of 7:41.
Did they vote?
I'm sorry, but.
Folks can stay if they want, you don't all have to
Okay,
leave, but,
yeah.
yep.
We'll be right back.
Okay, yeah. Well, then we'll entertain a recess. Yeah, well, wait.
You're right, adjourn means postpone.
Adjourn would be like done for the night, yeah, but you guys want, are you guys trying to make a decision tonight? Yeah, so.
Well, yeah, I thought it was 2 different things. This is a public hearing we're closing.
Yeah.
Now we're
You just
opening up
closed it,
a
then you're gonna open
planning
up,
board meeting.
and then you're gonna go into the minutes, and then it's business as usual. I'm gonna try and, once we get to the board member.
I don't know how you do this all the fucking time.
I don't
I got here late.
You can have mine.
I bought all right, thank you.
You can take that, you can take
Nice to see you, doll. You sure?
Yes, you're good.
Did you get my application for the sewer?
Probably
I
Beth
had
did.
Brian put it in last week, and I'm Barbara Schuster.
Beth would.
Okay, good, good,
Hey, Kingston. Ted Kelleher. So they are going to act tonight, or are they going to?
They are going to act.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, once the board member comes back.
It's starting to look like they're.
Yeah, no, they're going to the bathroom, they'll be
Let
Once Ed gets back in here.
I'm gonna be asking so when I'll get it. Alright, so we'll start with yeah. I'll have a couple, more than a
Alright, we can call it to order.
Excuse me, everyone, but we have to have this space for a planning board meeting, so you can stay, or you have to take your conversation outside, please. No, I'm not gonna be doing this. It's gonna be out. Oh, good.
Alright, we're about ready here. Oh, where'd Sean go? There he is. There he is.
See you later. Oh, wow. Yeah.
All right, we are now going to have a planning board meeting. So let me call to order the planning board meeting on March 13th at 7:46 p.m. Yeah. Where's the other one?
Your minutes should be...
Minutes right here.
I had it somewhere.
Right there.
There it is.
We'll get some Bobby later.
All right. So this meeting is in order, and we
You guys
need
have all
to
read?
revert action on the minutes. Do we have a copy of the previous minutes?
Oh, those should be them, right
Oh,
there.
these are them, okay.
Yep. Everybody had a chance to review them?
Yep.
All right, okay, so I entertain a motion to
Make a
accept
motion to
the...
accept the minutes from February 22nd as written.
Okay, second that? Okay, right. All right, all in favor? I'm in favor. Great, so... we are here to discuss the Robinson? No. So... we can take a vote on this tonight, but is there any comment from public or from Caleb Group? No. Okay, so
Steve.
Sorry, Steve.
Offer that it's an amazing thing to watch, so to speak, and it's a tribute to the town of Oxford to have so many people come out. Understandably, in terms of the circumstances and so forth,
Yeah.
but that is somewhat unique because I do a lot of these meetings.
Yes.
And I've been in far larger communities with highly contested projects, but you might get 5 people still that only come out.
Interesting.
But the smaller communities, and to have this sort of input and interest, it's all good. And I hope that came across from us here that it was all good. And,
Yeah.
we hope that we addressed all of the issues per se. I think there was just a lot of information that needed to be disseminated to the public, that they
Yeah.
understand what the proposal is, and that they could get a feel for it all, that, now I
Yeah.
understand.
This is what it is.
Yeah, this is what it is.
Not that's
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Right. And that was kind of...
No, you don't want to.
Yeah. That was my intent of having the public hearing, so that you all could explain it to them, and
Yes.
so I didn't have to, because I couldn't.
Well, yeah, no, but thanks for giving us the opportunity. I'm glad we got to do it.
Yeah.
To dispel any misinformation and
Yeah.
clearly explain it.
Yeah. So do you guys have any comments or have some discussion? You guys?
I'm good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so let's vote on this. We're gonna,
Explain the vote.
Okay,
yes,
so theoretically, it's a site plan and subdivision amendment, but then we also need to include the shoreland zoning application, because that is a requirement as well. So
But now, what's changed with the shoreline zoning, from my understanding? Because I remember when I came to see you that one day, we kind of went over it. I don't remember what's changed.
So it's
Other than them tearing the buildings down and,
well, the shoreland zoning part is complementary to the zoning, and it's
Right.
that unit count that now the appeals
Okay,
board has
gotcha.
granted for the variance. So this, you're going to be signing, I would say the subdivision, the site plan application. Do we have a signable Yes, there he is. So the shoreland zoning we need signatures from, and that I believe will satisfy the site plan. So the motion should be.
so we accepting the shoreline zoning ordinance, or shoreline
Not
zoning?
with the shoreland, it'll be subdivision amendment plans to include also the subdivision, hold on.
You think I'm gonna remember how to say all that?
I know, I know. So
I'm gonna,
the
Sorry.
subject where it says Robinson Mills site plan and amendment subdivision, just
Yep.
include shoreland zoning application, and that'll cover it.
So the Robinson Mill project with shoreline zoning amendment?
With the shoreland zoning, we will approve this, because it's an amendment, and then end it with shoreland zoning application, just to be safe.
I'm already lost.
all right.
So do you see the subject right here?
Okay.
This is the cover letter they gave us.
Oh, the cover letter.
Yes,
I'm looking at the wrong one.
sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, that in the bold, and then end with shoreland zoning application as
Robinson
well.
Mill development.
You can write on the
Oh, I
board.
got look at the wrong one.
But now that he's seen what I'm seeing, he'll get it.
Yeah, now they got the right paper.
Yes,
All right.
sorry.
I would like to entertain a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve Robinson Hill site plan and amended subdivision plan and include shoreline zoning
Application.
application.
Second.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Who seconded?
Get the right paper on
And
that.
all in favor.
And
All in favor.
All in favor? Yes, I'm in favor.
Or no, okay. I do have a black pen, this will be fine. For the subdivision, shoreland zoning application. And check off right there that it's approved. So you got a black pen. And then, how many you got? Got 3 of those? 2? Okay, that's fine.
The red share only takes paper nowadays.
Yeah, they don't take the Mylar.
Date, this is March 13th, 2024.
Yeah, well, I think I might just have them stand up and do it right here. Yeah, we'll make them
Move on down the line. Coming your way. Anyway.
Yeah, you guys are just gonna have to come up and do this. There's gonna be 2 of them. Signature block. Yep, and then we'll do both. Okay, that's the site, you need blue?
yeah, there's blue ink.
She's got blue ink. We usually,
Now we gotta go sign the actual
We have to sign both?
Yeah, you will do both.
Neither one of us
There's the
built
blue,
that
we do.
small area.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I never
It's the
went. Maybe once in 3rd grade. I can't remember when I was less than 36.
Sean?
Yep.
Blue?
I hope so.
Blue.
And underneath.
See if I can sign this one, little neat.
Look out, we got a left here.
Yep.
Oh, it's date. Sean.
Oh, I'll let somebody else write the date.
Sean, did you sign yet?
Yes.
Oh, Al?
Al, you're right.
Mr. Lima?
You gotta sign it.
He's coming.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I signed it. You guys get my copy? No, don't worry about that.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, just make sure you get black.
That was, like, probably a lot of the people, that was my biggest thing, is the, you said your first demonstration was, because we were worried about, you can imagine, riff raff and all this other stuff.
Well, I think it's a theme.
And you open the, your handwriting's so beautiful.
Well, look what's happened,
3:13.
that's all you have to do.
3:13.
And that's right, as you can hear, there's a
So
lot.
this is the first public reading, I think that's in Maine.
We're all asking that fundamental question.
No, it's all good.
What's going on here?
Exactly.
Sometimes
Sign it, the date.
It's going to go more than 25 when we go down that road. And people form a line. And there's a timer. No road is cheaper than
Yeah.
That's it?
They had to say these after.
It should be all anything like that should be.
Thank you.
This is the one.
Yeah.
This is what we're hearing is to get under the LRC and then some of the conditions
All right, gentlemen.
So we still, finish the meeting.
Yeah. Okay, all right, gentlemen, we can wrap it up if we're ready.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, we'll want to have everybody,
You
yeah.
have to be seated.
Real quick.
All right, well, that ends our order of business tonight. That was the only topic.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
All
And
right,
now, you beat me to it now.
I don't want to get out of here.
All in favor?
All right, all in favor?
All right, we're adjourned. Everybody can go eat cupcakes now.